Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar Magic the Gathering video. This one is going to be me going over all the information we got from the weekly MTG first look stream at the set, which is up. I'll have it linked below if you do want to check it out, but I'm going to pretty much go over all the core information here. But if you want to read a lot of the designers kind of talk about the stuff as they reveal it, definitely check out the stream. So, first of all, I do want to address the whole pre-order situation. As of the recording of this video, which I've already waited for like a few hours after the reveal, it doesn't really seem like the pre-orders have just like across the board gone live. Some places seem to have them, some places don't. Most notably, Amazon America, Amazon.com, doesn't seem to have gone live yet, even though there are links to it here. All the stuff just says temporarily out of stock, but I think it's like hasn't even started yet. It's not actually out of stock for whatever reason. They're just not ready to go yet. You can see here they have the avatar section, but when you go to it, the only thing they have is the play booster. But if you go to the links on the official Magic page, you can get to the pages for all the other stuff, but they're also all temporarily out of stock. Haven't gone live yet as far as I'm aware. Not sure what the deal is there, because they talked about how at the end the pre-orders are now available. So today's meant to be the day. That's why we got the images yesterday, and why we now have even more images now, and everything says pre-orders now. Amazon, for whatever reason, are just not ready. And I think in a way almost because of that, and a lot of other places aren't really ready yet. Myself, in Ireland, I've been able to pre-order a decent amount of the stuff from Amazon UK, but again, also, not everything. It's a pretty similar situation over there, but the stuff is actually available to pre-order, but, you know, they only have one of the scene boxes. I haven't seen the Commander bundle available there, but I've got the stuff that I mostly, that I want, so weird situation that Magic were prepared, but it doesn't seem like the retailers were ready. So it's just kind of keep an eye out, you know, contact your local store if you have one, your local game store. That's probably the best place to try and get the stuff in the first place. Otherwise, yeah, you're just going to have to, I guess, keep trying to refresh Amazon over the coming hours and days until the stuff actually goes live. Because especially if you want, I would say, the collector boosters, the boxes, and the Commander bundle, you need to get in there as soon as possible. But that out of the way, because unfortunately I don't think there's that much advice other than that you can really give about pre-orders. Is just look around the place at the places you usually would order your stuff from. That's kind of how it is. I'm just going to go off most of the stuff that's on the official Wizards Magic pages that they have up after the stream. So they've updated the main page to have a lot more information, but again, remember, the set's coming out November 21st. They're emphasizing the Brian Konietzko headliner card from the set, the Avatar Aang. But interestingly, they did reveal the normal version of this card. So this is going to be the standard set version of Aang Master of Elements / Avatar Aang. Looks very nice as well. Very, very cool. They show the gang. The gang's all here. Suki not included. Tends to happen, but a little bit frustrating. There'll be a Suki card. I assume she will actually probably fit in relatively nicely with these others, but for whatever reason they didn't include her here. It is what it is, but anyway. So we'll go over the cards more kind of a little bit later on. I'm just kind of highlighting what's here on the site. So they show off, you know, Aang, Zuko, Katara, Sokka, Toph, kind of standard versions of the cards. Very nice. Then they do also go over the product lineup. So again, play boosters, collector boosters, the bundle, the Commanders bundle, the Jumpstart boosters, both the standard booster, 2 booster pack, and the booster box. The pre-release pack is here. Beginner box, you know, get a look at it open. And then the scene box gives us probably our closest look at some of the stuff here. Still can't see it super closely even when you zoom in, but you can at least get a sense for the color identity of some of these cards here. And it gives you a more clear example of like, okay, that's the exact breakdown of like, you know, this is the split in the, like, say, the difference in the Mei Zuko card compared to the Aang Katara card. This is where the split happens, you know, that sort of idea. But there's all the products. very cool. But we'll mostly, I think, be focusing on what's on this page, the Collecting Magic the Gathering Avatar First Look page. So there's a lot more information on this one here. So first of all, the two set symbols. You have the main sort of play set symbol, and then you have the, what's it called? Eternal set symbol. That's why it's TLA for just The Last Airbender versus The Last Airbender Eternal is what this is. With the idea mostly being that if it has this symbol, you can play it in standard. If it has this symbol, it's not legal in standard format, and that's kind of just what they explain here. For Avatar fans coming in where you're maybe just going to use the Avatar cards, build decks just with the Avatar stuff, this probably doesn't really matter all that much, but effectively the idea is that like most of the Jumpstart stuff I guess is going to have this symbol, though I don't know if that's actually the case. There will be some stuff in the play boosters that has this symbol, which is fine for like draft and sealed, but again for the standard constructed formats you have to just be aware of that. It is what it is. I do want to draw your attention to this, the MSRP, the kind of recommended retail price for these products. There will be a bit of a high demand for some of this stuff, so make sure you don't pay over the odds for it and just know this is what like it's kind of meant to cost. $7 for the play booster, $7 for the Jumpstart booster. A collector booster is $38. That's the recommended retail price, though you'll probably see that being charged like crazy amounts in the coming days. The bundle is $70. The commander bundle is $110. The scene box, remember there are two of them, so you will have to, it's $41.99 times 2. And the beginner box is $35. And again, for booster boxes, just multiply the booster pack price by the number of packs in the box. So for play boosters, there's 30 in the box, so it's meant to be in or around 210. Collector boosters, there's 12-ish packs, I think, in the box. So again, you kind of do the math there, where it's meant to be more in the kind of $450, $460 range. And then the Jumpstart booster is 24 packs in the box. So that's more like, 160-ish for that, I think. But anyway, that's just what you should be looking for in terms of pricing, so you don't get like sort of scammed or kind of let the scalpers kind of win ultimately. Some important dates here. Basically, they're saying that October 28th is effectively going to be, this is the day where they're all in on the Avatar set. This is where the full spoiler season for the Avatar set's going to happen. I assume we'll know bits and pieces more in between now and then. But from the 28th all the way up to the release on November 21st, all things Avatar are basically going to be happening for Magic the Gathering. We'll have the full set list by November 7th. Pre-releases are happening the week before, so that's the 14th to the 20th. It's going up on Magic Arena, the digital platform, on the 18th. I will be doing some of that on my channel as well to get across some gameplay stuff, so that's cool. And then here are some of the kind of event stuff that's happening surrounding Avatar in terms of like the professional kind of game, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's all going to be exciting. And then we get into the mechanics of the set. So they lead off with the headliner card, the Avatar Ang card. Very nice. Interestingly, if you look at stuff up on the website, it does tell you what products you can get the individual card from. Now, again, keep in mind, we are talking about specific versions, specific types of art for this card. So the default art, which is this one here, as well as the foil version of this art, is available in pretty much everything. You can get it from play boosters, collector boosters, the boosters that you get in scene boxes, bundles, commander bundles, that sort of thing. And that's what they're talking about there. But yeah, that's just the big fancy Ang card. Then they explain what all the 4 bending disciplines do, and it ended up being a lot more, I suppose, simple than we maybe thought it would be. It's not that each bending has like 2 or 3 different effects going on. They're all just one thing. It's just they use the wording slightly differently because each of the bendings works in a slightly different way. So let's go over it here. So very briefly, the way airbending works is that it's about exiling things. Now, not fully exiling things. It gives whatever you've exiled an opportunity to get it back for relatively cheap, but it still slows them down getting the card back into play. It's exiled, but its owner may cast it for 2 mana to get it back. And that's an interesting one because part of the dynamic here is it's not just about kind of blowing away your opponent's stuff and slowing them down. A lot of the cards are asking you to almost do this to yourself to get extra value out of cards that do things when they enter the battlefield, as if you get them away to bring them back, they get their enter the battlefield effect again. That's kind of cool, very thematic for airbending. And the Appa card is the one that they really emphasize that effect with, where the Appa card allows you to target any number of target non-land permanents you control. So you're targeting your own things, but when you bring things back from exile, which is where the airbend cards go, you get token creatures when your stuff comes back. So you do get a bonus for doing that, which is really cool. Waterbending as an effect is basically a cost reduction effect. Ultimately what this is going to be is it'll say waterbend something, and then basically the effect after whatever the waterbend cost is can be anything. There's a big variety to what it will say afterwards. The core waterbending effect, though, is just the idea that whatever the cost is, you can reduce that cost by using artifacts and creatures you control to lower it down. So if it's waterbending 3, you can tap one of your other creatures to lower the cost down to 2. You could tap another artifact to bring it down to 1. That way you only have to pay 1 for the waterbending effect because you've lowered it using waterbending effectively. So it's a little bit more open here. It's kind of interesting. And the Katara card that they use for this is Waterbend X. So you get to choose how much you want to put into it. So you could choose like 10 if you have that much. And again, that is 10 mana, creatures and artifacts all adding together to make that mana. And in your creatures' power and toughness go up to, in that case, it would be 10-10. If you choose 5, it'd be 5-5. Very cool. And again, she brings a token in, so the token would also be buffed by what she does. So this card's actually quite nice. Earthbending, I think, is especially flavorful and also a very clever effect and take on earthbending. Basically what this is when you earthbend, you are turning one of your lands, your land cards, into a creature. So it's a land creature that you can attack things with. It has haste. So it's literally, you are manipulating the land, the earth, turning it into something to strike your opponent with. They do emphasize that the way earthbending works is that even if your land creature is defeated, it just goes back to being a normal land. So you're not going to lose lands in the process because they want you to use this effect without feeling like you're going to lose everything if it gets destroyed. So that's kind of cool. And then the significance of the number after Earthbend is just that the effect Earthbend just makes it a 0/0 creature. The number decides how powerful it will be. So this Toph card here has Earthbend 2. So your land creature is going to be 2/2 because it has 2 +1/+1 counters. And I think they explained that like you can earthbend on top of something that's already become a creature to make it more powerful. So you can, if you earthbend 2 something and then earthbend 4 the same land, it's now a 6/6 because it's just adding counters on. So I think that's really cool. Specifically, this Toph card as well is kind of nice because the metal bending aspect comes in because she basically turns your artifacts into lands. So you can effectively make your metal artifacts lands, highlighting that Toph can manipulate metal as well as earth. Very clever. Firebending is, as we suspect, it's an on-attack ability, but it's more about the energy aspect of firebending than the offensive aspect of it. So you still have to attack, but for Firebending 2, you are generating 2 red mana, not doing 2 damage. That was what I think most people thought it was. But no, it's an energy, it's a mana generation ability. So the Zuko, the Fire Lord Zuko here is Firebending X, where X is Zuko's power. So he initially comes in as 2, so he effectively has Firebending 2, but his other effect boosts him up, so this could become Firebending 4. where he generates 4 mana. And the mana has to be used in the combat step. So you don't get to just keep that mana for a really long time. It has to be in the middle of combat, so it mostly means that it has to be very fast things like instants and effects that work alongside instants. So there's going to be, I think, some cool combos based around firebending with the way some of that stuff works. And they also show off this Fated Firepower Mythic Rare card, which we'll maybe more talk about a little bit later on. But yeah, that's the way the bendings work. I think they all thematically fit for each of the elements, where the air one is about blasting things away temporarily. Earth is about literally transforming your lands into creatures, moving a large amount of earth. Water is more of a general cost reduction style thing. That's maybe the one that maybe comes across as perhaps the least flavorful, but it does have the idea of, water is the one where it's very kind of family, orientated. So it's everyone helping to make something big happen. And then, yeah, fire is very energy based, of course. So you generate more mana is actually quite cool. Then we get into the booster fun treatment. So effectively the different types of alternate art cards that you can have in the set. So they continue to emphasize the, I'm guessing, borderline one-of-a-kind card in the set, the Brian Konietzko Aang. There might be other cards. I think in like the podcast interview, they kind of talked about how Brian was maybe a little bit more involved than just 2 cards. So there might be other cards that are equivalent to this that are also only found in collector boosters. But for now, they're emphasizing this one is the big one to get from collector boosters. The second type of card only found in collector boosters is these battle pose full art cards, specifically the ones with neon ink in them. So I guess they're going to look super shiny, glow in the dark basically. I'm not super impressed by these ones because I do think it's a little bit weird that they don't have the effect text on them. Because again, remember, look at this card. It's Firelord Zuko. This card is mechanically this card. It doesn't have the text. Now, the card still operates in the same way. It's just that visually they have not put the effect text on this card to get across the visuals. My issue with this card is more so the fact that the underlying image that this is basically a very stock piece of Avatar art. Zuko doing this pose like we've seen over and over again. Especially Katara in this pose is like one of the most common modern Katara images that's out there. It's just emphasized a little bit more with the blue line work around the outside and taking away some of the detail. So I don't really mind that as someone who's not really going to be getting many collector boosters, apart from maybe the one in a commander bundle if I can pick up one of them. I'm not super eager to pull these cards because I don't think they look like that impressive. But again, I do want to see how shiny they are with the neon ink. They do emphasize as well that there will be non-neon ink ones that you can get in play boosters. So some of these will just be kind of casually in the kind of standard set, which is interesting. Then we have these borderless double-faced saga cards. Now, they emphasize some interesting stuff down here. By the time we meet Aang in the original series, the prior avatars and their foes are mythical figures. We're depicting their stories on a cycle, basically a group of cards, of mythic rare cards, borderless sagas. These sagas, upon reaching their final chapter, transform into powerful legendary creatures worthy of their fables. So the one they emphasize this is with Firelord Sozin. This is the front side of the card. So yeah, 6 mana saga. Starts off with destroy all creatures. So flavor-wise, that is, Air Nomad Genocide happens. Then on your next turn, it goes to stage 2. Choose a card name, search target opponent's graveyard, hand, library for up to 4 cards with that name, exile them. So that's him hunting for the avatar. That's why it's worded like that. That's what Sozin does, and he fails. Then exile this saga, return it to the battlefield transformed as Firelord Sozin, this really powerful firebender with firebending 3, menace, and does some other stuff as well. Very impressive. They also, I guess, highlight that the past lives are going to be done like this. So I'm guessing there will be a Roku card like this, Kyoshi, Karuk, Yang Chen. They also emphasize and their foes. So I'm wondering how they're going to do that, because of course Sozin is going to be Roku's foe. Chin we technically meet Chin the Conqueror in the show, but are they going to give him his own double-faced saga card? I'm not really sure. My guess is when they say it's a cycle, that usually means it's 5 cards, 1 for each color. So that's probably the way that they'll go about doing it here, is my guess. But I'm guessing the avatars might have to be multiple color. We'll just have to wait and see. Though, actually no. If it is just the 4 avatars and Sozin, they can actually just make each of them their kind of home nation. So Roku can be the red one, because Sozin is black. Roku can be red. Karuk can be blue for water. Yang Chen can be white. And Kyoshi can be green. Assuming there is only 5, but that I think makes a lot of sense ultimately as probably the best way to do the past lives as well. So that could be cool. It leaves it open for like, okay, yeah, I'm so excited to see what the other avatar cards now are. And yeah, these borderless double-faced ones are available in play boosters, so there's no kind of exclusivity necessarily there. You'll have an easier time pulling them from collector boosters, but they're not exclusive to them, which is cool. The animal cards, and by the sounds of things, certain creations, so maybe technology stuff, will be available as field note cards. So you can see this is almost like Beast of the Four Nations style art here for this Momo. And I think we have a few other versions of these cards that we can see down the line. Again, also available in play boosters and all this other stuff. So no super exclusivity going on here, which is nice to see. And then the elemental frames, also available in play boosters. So that's good. Easier in collector boosters, of course. But we have some examples here. Of course, the UA from San Diego Comic-Con is an example. Here's the Katara, which is blue-white. So you can see it's blue over here, white here. This redirect lightning card is of course fire, so you can see they have the reds and oranges here. Looks very cool. And then of course redirect lightning as a card is particularly notable just as like a technique from the show, and the art I think looks really good on both of these. So yeah, very excited to see that. Basically so far the stuff that's exclusive to collector boosters, I don't really mind missing out on, really. Like, sure, I would really like to have this card, and I'll be checking in on how much it costs on the third-party market when it actually releases, but that feels like right now the only thing that's a missed opportunity. These battle pose cards don't particularly interest me, unfortunately. I'll go into the lands in a second, but there is also, they did show these cards as well. These are the source material cards. Basically, it's a set of 61 cards that will use art that is directly taken from the show. So they're basically screenshot cards. These will be reprint cards. So you'll note this card. For Avatar, it's called the Banyan Tree, but previously this card was known as the Great Henge when it first released. And this is the representative from, of course, the Swamp episode, but they also showed from the final episode, of course, Avatar Aang, they showed Force of Negation, and they're just calling it that for the Avatar set as well. So you can see the screenshot stuff. These also don't particularly interest me. When they said there would be source material cards, I thought they more meant that they would have like almost a card named after every episode rather than just screenshot cards overall. Now, again, these also will be available, I think, in play boosters to a certain degree. I think it's like 1 in every 26 packs. So they're going to be rare enough. Doesn't really feel like a grouping of cards I feel like I need to go hardcore in on, but nice to have. It'll be interesting to see what screenshots they end up actually choosing. Mostly actually probably just to note what like what actual reprint cards from previous sets they actually do here. That will be kind of interesting. These are very cool though. The full art Appa lands. Every set always does something somewhat unique with their full art lands, because every set has to have new art for the lands. And this is what they do. They're calling them Appa lands because it's Appa flying over parts of the Avatar world. So the plains for white mana is Appa flying over the agrarian zone, which is very cool. The island is Appa flying over the Southern Water Tribe, specifically the iced up Fire Nation ship, of course. The swamp is him flying over the banyan tree, and the swamp from the Swamp episode. Interesting as well, just that they're letting the black mana source, which is always called a swamp, be the swamp, when it seems like black in the set overall is actually this sort of villainous color, with Azula cards, Sozin cards, and Ozai cards being black. Mountain is the area where Aang and Ozai have their fight at the end, as evidenced by the big rock pillars. Looks very nice. And then we have one of the air temples here for the forest, of course. I think they all look very, very cool. And again, you can pull these full art basic lands from pretty much everything, but also note you get them guaranteed in the bundles, as we'll go over in just a moment. So yeah, there's some more details on the products. They get broken down here a little bit more if you're not super familiar with, like, yeah, what is in a play booster pack, and they kind of cover here, like, you know, this many commons, this many uncommons. I'm not going to go into a particular amount of detail here overall. This is where they emphasize that, you know, this is where you get the scene cards from. It'll replace one of the commons. You also have an opportunity to get a token card, which, again, when cards mention tokens, there will actually be card versions of those tokens that you get from the packs. Collector boosters, you'll note the very specific makeup of the packs to, I think, attempt to make them worth the money. You get foil commons, uncommons, foil uncommon and commons from the TLE set of cards. You get a certain amount of, you know, full art lands, a slot for a rare or mythic rare from the play set, from the TLE set. You are guaranteed a booster fund, so an alternate art rare or mythic rare. And then, yeah, there's this slot here where you're guaranteed a rare or mythic rare in foil, and this is the slot that you can potentially get the Bryan Konietzko Aang from. That no other pack has this slot, so this is why it's exclusive to this specific one. And then also, this is interesting, art cards. There will just be full-on art cards in the collector boosters. So that is something to maybe look for on the kind of secondary market when the set comes out, to see what the value on those kind of art cards is actually going to be. But that is cool, just nice to know that they are there. Here are the Jumpstart boosters, which we know what they are now. You know, you buy two, put them together to make a deck. Each pack is a half kind of deck, a themed half deck. There are 61 possible Jumpstart themes from these packs, and each pack will have one or two rare or mythic rares, depending on how good of a theme you pull, basically. It includes land cards, of course, because you need to play, and you get a theme insert. The theme insert is basically what's pictured on the front. So, like, if you pull the Cabbage Merchant pack, I'm guessing it's that image, and it says, like, cabbages, and then on the back of the card, it'll be basically the half deck list for the cards that make up the cabbage theme. So you can keep track of, like, even after shuffling, what cards are in what theme, so you can keep them together and then mix and match them again. The bundle, like I said before, is 9 packs, but here's the breakdown on the lands. Even in the standard bundle, you do get a certain amount of the full art Appa lands. You'll get one of each of the different lands in full art foil, and one of the full art lands in non-foil. Plus, of course, the remaining lands will still be avatar art. They won't be full art land. They'll just be normal lands. Interestingly, they didn't actually show us what the normal lands look like. I'm guessing they're saving that for a little bit later. So they'll be a little bit different. And then, of course, you do get the spin down life counter, which is here. So it's kind of smoky gray, almost like ash-like, with orange text. Here's the Commander bundle. So what makes it Commander? They don't really explain too well here. 9 play boosters, 1 collector booster, 5 non-foil promo cards, 3 of which will be the same in every bundle, and then 2 will be random. You get the same foil lands, the same non-foil lands, including some full arts, and then you get the click wheel life counter, which looks kind of nice. If you open this up on Amazon, where it actually has the description, it tells you what you get. This is why it's called the Commander Bundle, is that 3 of the cards that you get in every one of these boxes is Commander staple cards. So these 3 cards will go in basically every commander deck. You get the card Soul Ring, you get the card Arcane Signet, and also Swiftfoot Boots. And these will all have avatar-themed art, and you get them in this box. The other 2 cards are random. You get 2 of 10 borderless versions of classic spells that will be perfect for commander decks. So those should be, I guess, commonly used cards in Commander. I'm guessing, once again, with avatar art, but you get 2 of 10. So these could end up being quite valuable, but I'm guessing these 10 cards are also available elsewhere in the set. Whereas, of course, these 3, I'm guessing it's the only place you can actually get these 3 cards is by buying one of the bundles. So that's that. The scene box, basically we know it. One of them is the Day of Black Sun Invasion. One of them is the ending scene at the Jasmine Dragon Tea Shop. You get 3 play booster packs in each of these boxes, as well as the 6 full art cards that I'll add together to make the cover image. And then you get 6 clean art versions as well to keep the art going. And yeah, again, remember, there are 2 different ones of them. Keep that in mind. The beginner box, once again, is also a Jumpstart themed thing where there are 10 Jumpstart half decks, 2 of which are tutorial decks that are built to be like not shuffled and just work kind of straight out of the box to play your first game with. Based on the image here, it looks like those are an Ang deck and a Zuko deck to do the tutorial with. And then we'll have to wait and see what the reveals are for the other 8 kind of decks. But yeah, this is the perfect kind of beginner kind of item, I think. The pre-release packs, here's the situation with them. You actually get to choose when you go to your pre-release which one of these boxes you want, because each one is effectively represents a different color. So Toph is green, Zuko is red, Katara is blue, Aang is white, Azula will represent black here. You are guaranteed to get the character from the front of your box in your pack somewhere, so you'll always, at the very least, can base your deck around that character. You do get a seeded Magic the Gathering booster that relates to the character and the correct colors and stuff like that, and then you'll add the stuff you pull from your packs into that, of course. So that's cool, but again, remember, this is not a product you'll be able to get from like Amazon. You only get this from your local game store. So that's the products. And then just before that, well, I mentioned this stuff here. Yeah, so they mentioned these 2 cards. This is one card that isn't in the card database. We'll come back to that. They showed 3 cards in terms of their art, the card name, but they didn't show what the card actually does. So here's the art for the Sozin's Comet card. Very, very cool. I'm actually very excited to see how this one operates. I'm guessing based on the layout of the card, it is actually, it's not going to be like a saga or something like that. So is it, what's it going to be actually? Like, is it going to be a land? Maybe, I'm not sure, but it's obviously going to boost firebending in some way, but we'll see. They showed the art for the card that's called Aang the Last Airbender. Really nice, really clean. So this is going to, they kind of said that this is meant to be early series Aang. So this is going to be, I guess, your airbending Aang. That's different than the Jumpstart one that we have. And then here is the Zuko that will more represent his kind of middle of the show era, where he's still, you know, conflicted about what's going on here. So love the art, and that should be a very different Zuko than the cards that we've had so far. Then we basically just need to take a little bit of a look through the card image gallery here. So this is basically everything that has been revealed so far. Let me just refresh this and see if it's been adjusted at all. So yeah, like I said, there's one card that they showed on stream that they don't have here, and that is the Hakoda card. Again, they showed it on stream. I don't know why they didn't show it. I'm guessing it's because they showed this as an extended art card. And that's potentially why it maybe isn't in the database just yet. But anyway, Hakoda, Selfless Commander, 3 and a white, human warrior ally, legendary creature for a 3/5 with vigilance. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast ally spells from the top of your library. And you can sacrifice Hakoda, and creatures you control get +0/+5 and gain indestructible until the end of turn. Very cool, very thematic for Invasion era Hakoda, where he's your leader, he's bringing other allies into play easier. He's got vigilance, so he's always attacking and kind of defending. And yeah, he's the strategist as well, so he's able to look at the top card of your deck at all times. They kind of hit all the beats with this one. I think it's a very cool card as a rare. But yeah, let's get some of the other stuff here. So Aang's Iceberg is a very cool card as well. Just the flavor on this one, because it depicts the card so perfectly. It's 2 and a white enchantment flash. When this enchantment enters, exile one other target non-land permanent until this enchantment leaves the battlefield. So the idea is that Aang is trapped in the ice. So when this card enters the battlefield, it traps something in the ice. You can then waterbend to basically free whatever is inside the ice from the ice. And you do get a bonus for doing that, which is Scry 2, which is, you know, checking out the top 2 cards of your deck and kind of stacking your deck a little bit. Flash means, of course, it can be used during your opponent's turn, which interacts with, I think one of the Katara cards wants stuff to happen during your opponent's turn. And then exiling cards obviously relates to airbending as well, as one of the Zuko cards also deals with this as well. I think it's quite clever. And again, the waterbending effect comes into play, where you can pay for the cost, which is 3, with other artifacts and creatures. So that's kind of nice. Appa, Steadfast Guardian. So we kind of roughly went over this one already because it's the example for airbending, but it's a mythic rare Appa. So this is the highest rarity card. So it's a quite high power level card. 4 mana for a 3/4. Flash flying. So you can, again, cast this on your opponent's turn, which is not usual for creatures. It's got flying, so it's got a little bit of an evasion because ground creatures can't block flyers. Appa focuses on your own non-land permanents with airbending, so you have to basically exile your own stuff, but you get the benefit of getting tokens when you bring them back, which is interesting. So if you build your deck in the right way, you probably want to recast your exiled cards to get bonuses with enter the battlefield abilities, plus the bonus of having tokens as well. So cool Appa there. Avatar Enthusiast is, I think, quite fun because it's obviously Foamy Mouth Guy as a card, but more broadly speaking, it's just the kind of Kyoshi Island fan club for Aang. So 2 and a white for a 2/2 human peasant ally. Whenever another ally you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So this is going to be what like the white deck, I suppose, is trying to do. It's just bring allies into play, boosting their power with +1/+1 counters, and that sort of thing. Really nice, just a simple common, because you know it's very easy to get distracted by all the rares and mythic rares, named characters and stuff like that. You have to keep in mind a lot of the cards are going to be commons, and they're going to be stuff like that are more minor characters that have minor-ish effects. But here's Momo, who is a rare. Momo friendly flyer, 1 white mana for a 1/1 legendary creature, lemur bat ally, flying. The first non-lemur spell with flying you cast during each of your turns cost 1 less, and whenever another creature with flying enters, Momo gets +1/+1. So the interesting thing here is, like, I'm not sure what the non-lemur clause is. I'm guessing it's just that, like, they don't want you to cast other Momos with Momo for cheaper. I'm not sure if they're maybe trying to say that maybe Momo is like the cheapest one, like as in like all the Momos will be really low mana cost. So if you lower 1 mana cost things by 1, it would be free. But either way, the idea is Momo's more, I guess, meant to help facilitate bringing other flying creatures into play, like Appa cards, but probably also a variety of airbenders will also have flying, and that's what he's tried to bring into play. And when those flyers come into play, Momo gets a bit of a boost. Really nice little effect there. I think that's pretty cool. Shrines, they gave an example of, is going to be a type of card that is in the set to represent kind of locations a little bit better. So Southern Air Temple gets +1/+1 counters based on the number of shrines you control, and then you get more +1/+1 counters when you bring more shrines into play. Cool, kind of if you want to go in on the airbender stuff, I guess there's probably some sort of a really cool dynamic between probably the 4 air temples if you have them all in play at the same time. That'll be something to look out for. Then we have alternate art versions of a lot of these cards. So here is the Appa in field note version. Really cool, emphasizing the tongue and stuff like that. There's the Momo in the field note version. Aang's iceberg, the alternate art, is the elemental frame one that you can see over here, which I think looks really good. Like, I don't think I've seen any art in the set so far that I think looks like in any way kind of bad. I think it all looks really, really nice. Here is one of the Aang cards from Jumpstart. So Aang Airbending Master. And he works interestingly because he has airbend another target creature. So you can do it to your opponent or yourself. Now, the effect wants you to do it to yourself, because whenever one or more creatures you control leaves the battlefield without dying, which would be this, you get an experience counter. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, so the very start of your turn, gain a 1/1 white ally creature for each experience counter you have. So you want Aang to airbend your own thing to get an experience counter, other airbending to do stuff to your things, to get more experience counters, to build up your token army, basically. Kind of cool, and this is going to be, I guess, one of the mythic rare Jumpstart packs that you really want to try and pull. So that's cool. Blue, this is actually a quite cool card here, Sokka's Haiku, because the card itself, its effect is a haiku. So it's 5 mana, instant lesson, counter target spell, draw a card, then mill 3 cards, untap target land. In itself, a haiku. Classic kind of magic card. Counter spell, draw, mill, untapping. Seems pretty nice. Here's the UA card, the kind of standard art version that we did get the art from at SDCC. Here's the UA we've already seen before. But now, of course, we know what waterbending does. So it's waterbend 5. And you can use your other creatures and artifacts to lower that cost, potentially quite a lot, to cast something for free from your hand. That's kind of nice. Here is a Katara Jumpstart card. 2 mana for a 1/3. Also a mythic rare pack. Whenever you cast a spell during your opponent's turn, you get an experience counter, and when she attacks, you may draw a card for each experience counter. And if you do, draw a card. So she wants stuff with flash, she wants instance on your opponent's turn, and that will help you draw cards. That seems really nice. That's classic kind of, I guess, blue magic play there. So that's that. With black, we of course saw the Rise of Sozin. The one they showed off primarily was this one here, the borderless one. But here's the normal Sozin here. I actually think the art here, especially when the standard version flips over, is really, really nice. Here's the Ozai Jumpstart card. So 4 mana for a human noble, 4/4. When he attacks, you may sacrifice another creature, add red mana equal to the sacrificed creature's power, and you don't lose that mana. And then you can pay 6 to exile the top card of each opponent's library, and you may play one of those cards without paying its mana cost. Actually kind of cool, and again, the art, very, very nice. So yeah, not too much in black, but again, we know Azula is also going to be in here as well. But I do wonder, is there some spirit stuff as well? We haven't really seen spirits apart from Yue, who makes a lot of sense to be more aligned with blue because it's the moon spirit, but there's that. Faded Firepower, I didn't really go over this one before, but it's kind of an interesting card. X, red, 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 so you really need to lean into red. It's a mythic rare, so it should do something crazy, and it kind of does. Flash enchantment, so you can use it on your opponent's turn. This enchantment enters with X fire counters on it, so depending on how much mana you pay for it, you get more fire counters. If a source you control would deal damage to an opponent, or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage, plus an amount of damage equal to the number of fire counters on this enchantment instead. So I guess the idea there is, if you would do 2 damage to your opponent, instead you are doing 2 plus X damage. And that is determined by how crazy you go with the casting of this card. So if you cast this for, say, like 3 red, 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 you would do 2 plus 3 damage, 5 overall. It's a firepower booster. It's effectively, this is the effect of Sozin's Comet. That's kind of what they're trying to get across here, because this is Iroh on the battlefield during Sozin's Comet in Ba Sing Se. And he should be empowered. That's what it's trying to do here. Fated firepower, the day the comet comes. Very cool. Here's the alternate version of that, which interestingly, they go more for gaining kind of boosting power in firebending from meeting the dragons Ran and Shaw, the original masters. Very cool. I love the art on this one. But yeah, that's Fated Firepower. We have the standard art for Redirect Lightning, which again is a kind of counter spell. It targets something else. People seem to be really into this card because it's a cheap way to redirect a spell. But it also is thematic because you can pay life or pay mana and stuff like that as well. This card is quite cool. Fire Nation Attacks. This gives you more of a sense for like, okay, so this is kind of how firebending is going to work. 5 mana for an instant. Again, keep in mind, you can do this in your opponent's turn. Create 2/2 red soldier creature tokens with firebending 1. So 2 separate tokens. Each has firebending 1. So if you attack with both, they each get 1 mana during the combat. You can also flash it back from the graveyard for 9 mana. But I'm guessing the idea there is that you're meant to use other sources of firebending so that you really heavily reduce down the cost of flashback with your extra mana that you're generating. So you can do some kind of cool stuff like, I guess the idea is use firebending to play this card for cheaper, then bring out your soldiers to play other stuff for cheaper, because effectively that's kind of how the extra mana is going to be working. But it does all need to be a kind of like instant speed, so you kind of have to lean your deck in a specific way, which I think is quite interesting. But yeah, that's what we have here. Then we have green. Not too much in green, in that we only got one kind of main set card for green. Earthbending Lesson. 4 mana for a common sorcery lesson. Very simple. Earthbend 4. So one of your lands becomes a creature with haste that gets 4+1/+1 counters. So it's a 4/4 creature with haste. That's all it does. That's really nice, neat way. Kind of highlights that I guess there will, I think they even said as much, that I'm pretty sure they kind of implied that there will be a card called Waterbending Lesson, Firebending Lesson, and stuff like that. I'm not sure Airbending Lesson necessarily, but probably there might have to be, but we'll see about that. That would have to be Gyatso, I guess, on that card. Maybe Appa. That would be kind of cool. But yeah, very, very nice. As for what lesson means, they kind of implied that it mostly is just a thing where, like, for flavor, the idea of teaching is an important thing for, like, Aang's journey, but that there will be cards that mention, like, hey, if you played a lesson this turn, something will happen. So it's just play a lesson, play the card that relies on lessons, that sort of idea. The Cabbage Merchant. So this is a jumpstart card, so keep in mind there probably is likely to be a Cabbage Merchant card in the main set that operates slightly differently, but here's how this one works. So 2 and a green for a 2/2 human citizen, legendary creature. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, create a food token. So when they cast an instant, a sorcery, an enchantment, that sort of thing, you get to create a food token. A food token, of course, is just an artifact with pay 2, tap, and sacrifice, so eat the token effectively. You gain 3 life. Easy way to gain life for yourself. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, sacrifice a food token. Then you can also tap 2 untapped foods you control to gain 1 mana of any color. So the idea is that you're trying with him to, I suppose, build up your food tokens, while also not losing too many to the damage that you're taking. And then if you build up a lot of food, you can eventually tap it for extra mana. You do wonder maybe what the payoff is in this little half deck, but a cool idea for a card. Like, I can see people immediately wanting to maybe build like a commander deck around it, but also he's a mono green commander though. If you're trying to build a commander deck there, it's not multicolor. I'm guessing there probably will be a multicolor Cabbage Merchant somewhere in the set that might be easier to build around, but that's that. And then yeah, we do have multicolor cards. So yeah, Avatar Aang, Firelord Zuko. So Aang we've already gone over before, that's not new. The Firelord Zuko card, I don't think I actually properly talked about it. So yeah, he has Firebending X. I think we talked about that section of his effect. His other ability is when you cast a spell from exile and whenever a permanent you control enters from exile, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So he gains power from stuff coming back from exile. Now the question is, how do you put stuff into exile? And I think that's where the ang in the card comes from, is that airbending puts stuff into exile. Then you can use the other effect of airbending to pay 2 to bring it back. That will then empower Zuko, and that represents Zuko at the end of the series. Aang has helped him kind of achieve, everything he needs to along his arc, and it's just a really nice example of like the two of them being there at the end, that Zuko has benefited from Aang and that sort of idea. I think it's a very clever kind of a thematic card that actually is pretty decent. Katara the Fearless, this is the SDCC promo card. This is the normal art that will be in the set. I actually think this one actually works a little bit better, though I did like the SDCC promo as well. But yeah, she's the ally triggers again character, so that's cool. I already talked about the Katara one. Basically, Waterbend X makes all your characters have XX. She creates a token. Interesting. The Sokka Boomerang card is blue and a red for a 1/1. When he enters, discard up to 2 cards, then draw that many cards. When you cast an artifact or a lesson spell, so there's your lesson kind of payoff. He wants you to play lessons. Put a +1/+1 counter on Sokka. So he makes himself more powerful as you put like devices, inventions into play, or he learns. Very nice. Toph Metalbender, we went over that, of course. There's an alternate art in the elemental frame for Katara the Fearless. So that's what it looks like for a crazy multicolor card, is that they go for more gold theming, which is cool. Katara Water Tribe's Hope, there's the elemental frame. Here's Toph First Metalbender elemental frame. And then we've seen these neon ink cards before, but there is the Toph. Very much highlighting that, yeah, they're going for the standard stock imagery poses for these cards, which is a little bit boring. But like I said, I think they'll look really nice in the right lighting conditions as just really shiny cards. So there's that. And then, yeah, they have the Sokka here as a extended art card. So just the art goes slightly down into the edge to the border in comparison to it's stopping here. And then, yeah, there's a colorless card here, Aang's Journey. So let's just quickly open this one up. So this is colorless, so it's not related to any color. It just costs 2 mana of any type. It's got Kicker 2. It's a sorcery. It's a lesson. Search your library for a basic land card. Pretty simple. If it was kicked, so if you pay 4 for this, you get to search for a basic land card and a shrine card, so like the Southern Air Temple or the many others that will be in the set. Reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle, and you also gain 2 life. This is also card number 1 in the set, which is kind of notable. You can see then there, it's a common, and yeah, it's 0001. So, yeah, this one, because it's colorless, that means it's also, it's more generic. It's not going to be super powerful. It's more of a basic one. I'm not sure how often you'd necessarily play this card in a deck, but it does some flavorful stuff there of just, the group can just journey along as normal and just pick up, a land, or they can really go for it and go to maybe a more notable location. That's sort of, I think, the idea of the card. And then, yeah, here are the full art lands, and that's all we have so far. So, gonna wrap up the video there. We went over kind of a lot of stuff, but we seem to know a much better idea about how the set kind of operates at this point. Obviously, still a lot of cards. We don't really have that many overall. Considering the set numbers go up to like 200 and something, not including alternate arts, we really don't have that many cards in the set. And like I said, especially because a lot of the cards here are rares or mythic rares, we don't know a lot of the kind of more basic standard cards that are happening here. But I'll just kind of end with the idea of, yeah, pre-order stuff, keep an eye on Amazon and other places that have Magic stuff. But otherwise, in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the big reveal for Avatar. What are your thoughts on the art so far, the flavor for Magic, and especially if you are maybe an Avatar fan coming into Magic for the first time, like, what's your experience been like so far, kind of getting into Magic? Like, do you understand the cards when you're reading them and stuff like that? Now, let me know. But otherwise, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.